Now that we know how to build levels, let's now learn how we can add polish once we're getting ready to ship our title. Over the course of this section, we're going to take a look at how to create materials, how to place materials on brush faces, as well as how to mesh our levels to make it a more believable environment. So with that, let's get started. In this first video, we're going to learn how to create materials. We're going to dive more into how a material works, as well as what kind of properties we want to deal with. And specifically in this video, we're going to take a look at how to import textures into Unity. We're going to learn how to create materials, and then we're going to discuss the standard shader that we're using for our materials, with how all the properties work and what they mean for us. So with that, let's get started. So since the last video, I've gone in and put together a simple scene using our terrain as well as the simple rooms that we created earlier for this course as a little area for us to play around with and learn how to make our world look that much better. So I'm going to go in and play here, and you'll see that there's two rooms. We can walk in them. They've got some windows. Simple enough. And what we're going to do is we're going to learn how we can make this look even more polished by making use of materials for our walls. So again, I have this example scene available for you to use. However, if you make your own level, you can use that as well. If we have a real level for us to work with, we'll also need to have something to actually put on these walls. And in Unity, we can control the visual appearance of things by making use of materials. Materials control the visual aspect of an object. This includes the shader that we use on the object, as well as the color, shininess, how bumpy it is, and many other properties. And to create materials, we usually apply textures or image files into various properties to adjust these settings. And now let's go ahead and see how that works. So in the example code that's going to be provided with this project, you'll notice that I have a folder here for game textures, and I have a number of folders here for us to play around with. I'm going to drag and drop this folder into my project, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at it. So I'm going to go ahead, bring it in, and we'll wait for it to finish. Now, these textures were provided by the great folks at GameTextures.com. And they have a large library of ready-to-use materials for you to put into your games with little or no effort. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a material using this information. So inside here, I'm going to go ahead and select Create, Material, and then we're going to give it a name. I'm going to call it Cinder Block. Now, on the right-hand side here in the inspector, you'll see that there's a number of properties that we can work with. The first property that we're going to mess with is the albedo, which is how it's going to be drawn. And I'm going to drag and drop this texture into here. And notice that now the bottom has that information stored there. It's now displaying this texture on this cube. And if you want to change the object that it's using here, you can change it from different shapes to see what works best. I think the square looks the closest to what we're going to be doing, so I think that'll be fine. I'm then going to take this height map. I'm going to go ahead and bring this over into the height map property. Notice now how these seem a bit more defined than what was there previously. And then I'm going to go ahead and add this normal map to here as well. You'll see it becomes a little more defined each time. Now, we can also modify some of the properties from this object. Say, for example, I'm also going to take the height map and put it on the occlusion as well. And we can go ahead and modify these in order to change how my object is going to move. So I'm going to move this to a 0.1 because our object isn't necessarily going to be very smooth, right? Blocks aren't that smooth. And I'm also going to go to my height map here, and we'll increase the density to maybe a 0.8 or so. And you can pull this out too to see more easily what we've done to this object. This material uses a shader here called the standard shader. And this is something that was newly introduced in Unity 5. And it's now the default way for us to create materials for non-mobile platforms. It's very powerful, but may be a bit complex to newcomers. Just to give you an idea, the albedo property is the base color to use on the surface of our object that we're placing. The normal map is what's also referred to as a bump map, and it's a special kind of texture that'll add bumps and other aspects to your material to artificially add depth to the object. And the height map property is another kind of bump map, but instead of showing the difference in direction the surface appears to face, it instead shows how high the surface should appear to be raised. Black is not at all raised, white is all the way. And the height map property has a slider that we can use to change how high or low the bricks will appear inside of our image. Now the occlusion property, or the inclusion map, provides information on what parts of the material should receive indirect lighting from our directional light, and so on and so forth. And the metallic parameter sets the reflectivity and the light response of the object. It contains two sliders, metallic and smoothness, and metallic means how metal-like that surface is. 1 is pure metal, 0 is not metal at all. Smoothness is how smooth the surface appears to be. So for instance, if smoothness and metallic are both 1, we'll get a mirror. Go through all of these different textures that we have, and we'll create materials for that as well. So I'm going to go ahead, create material. So you'll see here that with my concrete floor, when I assign this normal map, I get an error saying this texture is not marked as a normal map. And I can click the Fix Now button, and it'll automatically fix it. But if I want to, I can also go to the inspector here and change the texture type to a normal map. You'll notice that the other images are set to this default value. All right, and with that, we should have some nice materials for us to work with.